to another edition of The Office Visit with Dr. Tom Pritchard. I'm your host, Matt McCormick, alongside Dr. Tom. Dr. Tom, here we are in the second episode of Season 2 of The Office Visit. How do you feel so far?
I'm feeling great, man. I mean, I didn't think, Season 1 could be surpassed, but we're looking to do it in Season 2, and I can't wait.
Absolutely. Tom, I got a question for you. Imagine that. Okay. So growing up watching professional wrestling in Houston or in Texas, did you ever see a guy you thought, man, he just never wins a match, but he keeps coming back every week? Do you remember guys like that?
Well, sure, of course I do. I remember guys like Alex Perez, Nick Roberts, and guys who almost get beat every week. And I kept wondering, I said, well, how in the world do they keep getting on TV, because they never win a match, but occasionally now they might come out victorious against another guy just like them.
So let me ask you a question that maybe I want to know myself, and maybe other people want to know. The word, okay, let's talk about the word job. Is that a derogatory term in the world of wrestling?
Well, at one time, it might have been. You're doing a job, but at the same time, I think it's all in context. Take it in context. If you were known as a jobber back in the 70s or 80s, some guys might have taken that as a derogatory term, whereas other guys might have taken it as, that's my job to go out there and lose, and to put someone over who might make money for a company and in turn make money for you. Again, in the early part of professional wrestling, the early times of professional wrestling, if you will, doing the honors or doing a job for someone, putting someone over, being on the losing end, whether it's on TV or at a house show, that pretty much guaranteed you would have a job because you were able to make that guy look as good as possible, and that was your job. Therefore, I think the word jobber came into effect then. So I don't think a lot of guys took it as a derogatory term, whereas some did.
So the word jobber, did you, let's just say when you first started in wrestling, did you hear that word a lot? Was that, because nowadays it's used, but people really don't know how to use it. But was it used back then?
Well, of course, they use it in referring to me. We all do jobs, and one of the things that I heard, I think it might have been Ric Flair, or maybe even Terry Funk, one of the world champions, said he's the biggest job guy in the business because it was the job guy's purpose. That was what he was there for, was to make other guys look better than they were. You can't, back in the older days, prior times to this, in professional wrestling, you couldn't put two stars together. It was more or less, television wrestling was a commercial, a showcase of the top star beating someone and having his opponent beat someone else, and hence they would be the job guys. But the job guy's responsibility was to get the man over better than anybody else could, and to be considered someone who could get somebody over that great was quite an honor back then.
Absolutely. So, as a fan, you mentioned Alex Perez. Who are some of the, for you growing up in the area you grew up in, who are some other guys you remember?
Well, there was a guy in Houston, Texas, named Tiger Conway, and Tiger Conway Sr., not Jr. While he was a capable wrestler, he lived in Houston. He wasn't going anywhere, but he didn't always win. He was one of those guys that you knew when someone wrestled him, he was going to lose. His opponent was going to go over. So that stuck out to me. Houston and Dallas, Billy Howard. I remember Billy Howard, a guy from Minneapolis, came in, who I followed on the wrestling magazines and things like that, came to Houston. Knew when he stepped in the ring he was going to lose. Doug Summers, a guy who later on became an AWA World Tag Team Champion, was a job guy in Houston, but he was young, starting out. So that's what you do when you start out in professional wrestling. Your job is to lose and get experience and to help get the man over that you're wrestling.
And as we'll talk later on, we talk about an art form to all aspects of professional wrestling. There's an art to making someone look good as a jobber or an enhancement talent.
Right. Now take the guy, again, as one of the guys who's been there a long time and understood his role from the beginning. Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, WWE. He still has a job. conducting interviews and getting promos out on time. But occasionally he'll come back and he'll still put someone over. He'll put on the tights, put on his blue jeans as a Brooklyn Brawler, whatever it may be, and still go out and put someone over. He knew his job. He did it better than anybody else and didn't give anybody any lip, didn't give anybody any attitude. But he had a job as a jobber. But the word these days is enhancement.
But could it even apply to anyone today? I mean, because now on television, though, we see star versus star, star versus star, star versus star.
Yes.
Is there?
Well, no, I've always thought you had to have a winner and a loser. You have to. So everybody does jobs. Everybody is enhancing someone at one time or another. Yeah, you hear the term jobber as much anymore. You hear it, if any anymore, unless it's like you said, from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. It's enhancement talent. These days, when you have to have star versus star, when you have 3-hour TV shows or 2-hour TV shows or 10 hours of live or let me say original television every week, you have to have somebody winning and somebody losing. Not everybody can win all the time.
So for the folks watching at home, let's lay out why it was a good idea to, back in the day, and apply it to the time that we were in back then, why it was not star versus star. It was your top guy against a jobber or enhancement talent. Why was that?
Well, once again, a different world, different business, different time. Back in the older, I don't want to say olden, but older days, and in my time of reference dates back to the 1960s and on up. But it was a territorial system, which meant in Texas, West Texas had its own towns and territories and superstars. East Texas had their own, and so on and so on. But the fact is, if you had star versus star, there was no reason for the people to come out for the arena matches and the live events. That was the bread and butter back then. These days, it's now TV revenue, ad revenue. So you have to have star versus star, and still, it's not so much the house shows that make the money. It's ad revenue and it's merchandising and things of this sort. And these days, the superstars of wrestling, which are WWE, aren't necessarily counting on just wrestling alone. It's about the entertainment value, and that's one reason why World Wrestling Entertainment is now World Wrestling Entertainment. That's a big, big part.
Right. Something else that's interesting about enhancement talent. I want to mention a guy here at the top of our list, George South.
Yes.
George South was an example of, he was an enhancement talent everywhere. And in 1 week, and I remember George showing me this, in 1 week, you could see him on WWF at the time, NWA, 3 or 4 major territories at once. So enhancement talent, the other opportunity they had was they weren't locked into one place necessarily. They had the freedom to go work elsewhere. And also, Tom, talk about how on what was considered outlaw shows, they were top guys, right? Because they were on TV.
Correct. That was the deal back then. I mean, take George South, who comes from Charlotte. You're right. He worked Charlotte, NWA, TV as an enhancement talent. Go to WWF at that time as an enhancement talent. If AWA was doing TVs, he would also go to AWA and do enhancement work for them. And then on the outlaw shows or independent shows back then, because these guys had TV exposure, they were considered the top stars. Because not just anybody at that time could be on TV. And it was the best of the best. And even the best of the guys who could put someone over, who would get on TV. And the top guys, the stars, would ask for guys like George South because they knew that George knew how to work. They knew that George knew his spot. They knew that George would take care of them to make them look better. You can't just go in the ring and expect someone to take your finish or take your best stuff and to take the best bump or to do the best job for them. George South knew how to do that. George South had no ego about it. He knew what it was about. He understood what his place was, and he did it very, very well. That's why he was employed for so long. And he's still employed today. He still loves the business today. And I worked with George South, last year. And it was one of the first times it actually was the first time that I worked with George was last year. Come to find out, I realized when I got in the ring with him why everybody wanted to work with him, because he's unselfish. He understands what the people want, how to do it, how to read the people, how to listen to the people during the match. So that's why a guy like George stuck around so long and was able to become his own star, become a star around the Carolinas, especially because people would see him on TV, and now a TV star is coming to this small promotion and elevating their stars.
Another name that's synonymous with George South is Italian Stout. And Stout, I think the interesting thing about Stout was his look. He had the look of a top guy. So top guy beats Stout, and that's credibility for the person going over, right?
Well, the Italian Stallion was, I met him a few times, but, back then, the enhancement talent would come from different parts of the country. And there would be one guy who would organize everyone, and Stallion was the guy in the Carolinas, I believe, that organized everyone. And he would take a fee from everybody that would be booked on the TV for WWE. And he wasn't necessarily the most popular guy at that time, because he would take his fee and he would get the guys together and bring some good guys up. In fact, I think he might have brought the Hardy Boys up the first time, for enhancement talent. But, that was the price you paid back then to get an opportunity. And some of the enhancement talent, like the Hardys, started out as enhancement or jobbers, became stars later on. So Stallion knew how to do business. He understood how to make money, and that's the key. That's the idea behind this, is to make money, and he knew how to do it.
And I know firsthand that Stallion and George would pile guys into a church van with no seats in it.
Well, of course.
And but you're right. It's very old school, if you want to call it that. But it was exposure that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Right. And sometimes, we did see guys who came with the opportunity to do a job, and they might have got hired later on and became superstars. And the example is, again, the Hardy.
Well, and to go right along with that, George South tells a great story about the Hardys, and that him and Stout brought the Hardys to WWE, introduced them to Vince. Vince said they're they're too small, don't want to use them. So 3 months later, they bring them right back to Vince, and Vince says, "Yeah, we'll give them a shot."
Right.
Didn't necessarily remember them, and the rest is wrestling history.
Well, that goes back to never say never, and that people don't understand that just because you say no today doesn't mean you'll hear no tomorrow. Right.
So let me bring up another guy, another Mid-Atlantic enhancement talent per se. How about Rocky King?
Man, you know what? Rocky King was one of those guys. He had a great body. He looked the part. He had everything you wanted in a wrestler, except maybe he didn't always think clear all the time. And that's what I heard about Rocky. I mean, Rocky had the ability, he had the look, but you have to have that attitude as well. And I think Rocky might have gone out there to try and showboat or try and get himself over at the same time, which is all understandable, but you have to know where your role is. Right. And Rocky King was a great guy, very good enhancement talent, but I think they quit using him later on because Rocky decided he should be a star. Not everybody's destined to be a star.
Another interesting story in Mid-Atlantic wrestling folklore is the Monkey Brothers. I think they're one of the more, would you say one of the more famous enhancement talent tag teams ever?
I'm going to say, I would go ahead and go out on a limb here and say they are the most famous tag team enhancement talent. And they're still around today. I see them, or I've seen them.
At some convention.
Yeah, in Charlotte for the last 2 years. And they look nothing like they did then. They don't look anything like they did then today, by any means. But that was a prime example of an experiment in Charlotte on TBS to say, hey, we can make anybody a superstar, and we'll make these guys stars in their hometown. I don't remember the name of their hometown. Do venue.
It's in South Carolina.
It's in South Carolina, but they went ahead and they put the Mokies over the Midnight Express, I believe it was, on TV.
Yes.
Yeah. And with
And their return was in their hometown.
in their hometown. The Mokies versus Midnight Express main event. Job guys versus former World Tag Team Champions. How was going to happen?
They got beat.
Well, what happened was a packed house.
Right.
You know, small venue, but a packed house. And so, I mean, it just goes to show you can. And one of the problems guys worried about back then, I think, was losing too many matches. Can you recover? If done the right way, yeah, you can. And I think if done the right way, you know, the Mokies didn't work out. They never seen, I don't think they've been in the sun for the last 30 years. But, you know.
People still talk about it.
Exactly. And that's what made, you know, a job guy or an enhancement talent special.
Let's talk about, and this is jumping around a little bit,
Sure.
since you brought it up, can you recover? And this is something that hits a little close to home, but a guy by the name of Barry Horowitz.
Yes.
Barry Horowitz is a known for being an enhancement talent, but he gets one win over Chris Candido and on WWF television, and then boom, he recovers.
Well, you know, Barry Horowitz had his own T-shirt. And it was, yeah, a slap on the back. I don't know how many people bought the T-shirts, but they bought more Barry Horowitz T-shirts than they did Body Donner T-shirts because we never had T-shirts. So there you go. I mean, what the hell? You cannot knock an experiment that happened and it was a success. I mean, Barry Horowitz had done jobs for everybody. He didn't care. But he kept patting himself on the back and he kept going out there with this never say die attitude and didn't mind doing the honors for someone else because he looked competitive in the ring. Every time, it didn't matter who he wrestled,
Right.
he didn't just get beat like a dog. He
Right.
worked out. He came to the ring giving you a competitive match. And that's what you want when you're going to go out there and wrestle somebody who's doing the honors for you, who's going to do the job. You don't want to just go out, and if you chop meat, if you just beat somebody up and then pin them, who'd you beat? But if you beat somebody up who fought you back and gave you a competitive match.
And you know, that goes right along with today in independent wrestling. Let's say, well, you can probably vouch for this too, yourself, Ricky Morton, Tracy Smothers, the guys that are still out there working night in and night out. If a guy gets on the mic and alludes to the fact that you are older than them, right, and you beat them, he just got beat. Oh man,
Yeah. And here's the story that was always told to me. First of all, I made the mistake one time in California. My first territory was Los Angeles. My first full-time territory was Los Angeles. And there was a guy there by the name of John Tolis, the Golden Greek. I watched John in Texas. I watched John and knew John was a superstar. He was a major star wherever he went. His home was Los Angeles. Well, I cut a promo and I called him an old man. Ooh, yeah, ooh is right. I'm 20 years old, and it just came out. And John came to me and said, "Oh God," he was so disgusted. He was so pissed. I could see it on his face. But he was a classy guy, and he was a great man. He really was a great man. But John was about 50 then, and I said, "You can't beat me, old man," or whatever I said. And I was supposed to see this baby face. And John was so pissed and said, "Don't ever say that again." That was terrible. Well, and later on, I heard the story. I think it was Alan Drill or someone told me that Dory Funk Sr. Once told this guy who went on and cut a promo in Amarillo saying, "I'm going to beat this old man Thursday night in Amarillo, and this old man can't hang with me, and this old man, this old man, this old man." And Dory came to him later and said, "Son, what's it going to look like when this old man beats your ass Thursday night? It'll make you look pretty bad." I'll never say that. Yeah. So I understood that.
Right.
And now, as I got older, and people said, "Well, everybody says, 'Hey, old man,' that the hair on the back of my neck stands up." And the last guy to do that to me was a guy by the name of Rick Victor, who's now with Ascension. Victor and Connor. Victor actually called me an old man during the promo class in FCW. And when he got out of the ring, I hit him in the back with a clipboard and I said, challenge you to a 1 hour match.
Yeah.
Which we did. We did the 1 hour match. So the old man part, I can understand now as I've got older and been through my career. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still, well, for some people it does, but for me, I can still go an hour, I promise. And I won't do the job these days. Although, actually, I take that back. My job now is to put over the younger guys, because I understand my place in the business. But when someone goes out there and says, old man, yeah, then if you beat me, you beat an old man. What does that mean?
And if you beat them, you got beat by an old man.
Right.
So
don't bring attention to it.
Absolutely.
That's the point.
And tying it back to Barry Horowitz, like you said, he had the look, he had the skills. So when you beat Barry Horowitz, even though he got beat every week, when you beat him, it gave you a win over the person.
Right, because you didn't just go out and chop meat. You didn't just go out and just beat some guy who laid down for you. You went out and beat somebody who gave you a run for your money. So that was the story. It all ties back together. You're doing a job for each other. You're helping the guy get over. You're helping you get over. But it's how you do it. Do you want to do it this way? Is it a strong win? Yeah, sometimes it has to be, but not all the time, not every time.
And we'll get into this, but there's different levels of enhancement talent. And one thing that sticks out in my mind, you talk about helping each other and putting each other over, even in the course of being an enhancement talent. A good friend of yours, the late Brad Armstrong. He didn't win every week, but I remember Arn Anderson specifically saying in a post-match interview, I just beat the best wrestler on television today, Brad Armstrong. It did Brad a favor, who had just got beat, and Arn looked great in the process.
And just touching on Brad Armstrong, he was probably, if I want to say the greatest, if not one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, who would lose continuously on WTBS. Once again, it goes back to the backstage issue. And Brad could be the greatest job guy of all time, but this guy was such a pro. He understood what it meant to go out there every week, no matter who it was, especially later on in his career with the young guys. It was up to him to make them look better and be better than they actually were. Arn Anderson's a great talent, no doubt about it. But without a Brad Armstrong, there would not be an Arn Anderson. Arn knows that too, and that's why he said that. And it was, the Armstrongs and Arn go back a long way as well. A lot of us, a few of us. Let me say, I'm not a lot of us. I'm not going to give you that, but a few of us go back with the Armstrongs that far, and where we understand the best worker of the bunch outside of Bob, outside of the father, was Brad. And Brad put people over because he knew he could do it better than anybody else.
Absolutely, and not lose anything in the process for himself.
Yeah, he was still that guy. I mean, he was not considered a job guy. He was considered a guy who could put you over better than you could put yourself over.
And from a fan standpoint, I don't always like to admit that I grew up in the WWF era of the early to mid-90s, but when we talk about Barry Horowitz, when I think of Barry Horowitz, I remember him beating Chris on TV. So there you go. In some fans' minds, they forget the losses and they remember that one win.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, once again, Chris Candido understood the significance of being the guy that Barry Horowitz beat.
Right.
Because Barry Horowitz was a perennial loser, not just in WWF. In Florida, in the Florida Territory, his name was Jack Hart, and they did the loser gimmick with him in Florida, where he would lose every week and would put his losses up. I'm not sure if you know this.
No.
In Florida, this was Eddie Graham's territory. They put the losses on the screen. Every match he lost, until that one big win. Yes, like 100 losses in a row, and that one big win. Here he is. Oh, and they just duplicated it in WWE. Chris understood that. Chris understood the significance of being the first guy that this underdog, Barry Horowitz, beat. Chris Candido.
Did Chris have a family member that was also
Chuck Richards.
Right.
Yes.
But, what did he go by?
Sailor Chuck
Sailor
Richards.
Chuck, yeah.
Or yes. Chuck, well, Popeye Chuck.
Popeye,
Excuse
yes.
me, not sailor. Yeah, I knew that. Well, Popeye was a sailor, sure.
Popeye the Sailor Man.
No, Popeye Chuck Richards, yes. Had Terry Funk's first match in Madison Square Garden. That's why Terry and Chris were so.
And see, a lot of people don't realize that about Chris, I don't think. But
Right.
they had that experience already.
It wasn't well publicized, but I mean, if you know, again, if you're a student of the game, you can find this out.
Absolutely. We'll move on. So we just kind of compiled a list here. I'll get your reaction to some of these names. Iron Mike Sharp.
Oh my gosh!
One of my favorites, if nothing else, for the grunt the entire match.
Well, okay, I know some people know this, and again, people who follow and read a lot about professional wrestling know about Iron Mike Sharp being a fanatic about working out, fanatic about squatting, push-ups, and then about his hygiene. He has to be very particular. Yes. But more so than everyone else, he'll take a shower for an hour. He just. But
That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, but the point is, he's been locked inside buildings after hours because he's still doing squats, he's still doing push-ups, he's still doing these things. Yeah, and so to take a shower, and it was just those quirks about guys like Iron Mike Sharp. Iron Mike Sharp. I've never met anyone else like Iron Mike. Great man, great guy, but just one of those guys who had his habits.
You work with him?
Yeah.
How was that?
No, it was great. I worked with him when I was very young in Louisiana, and he was there at the same time. Very nice man. Didn't hurt me. Could have killed me, but he didn't, and thank God for that. No, very nice.
What held a guy like Mike Sharp back? Was it those quirks?
Possibly. I don't know that Mike played politics as well either. And once again, just if I can delve off into a side road here.
Sure.
You know, the difference between a job guy and a superstar necessarily isn't always the ability, but it's how you play the game or
Opportunities.
Opportunities. How bad do you want it, or what are you willing to do to advance yourself? Some guys were just content in coming in and getting someone else over and being part of the business. And I understand that because I was one of those guys who was content and very happy with being in the business and just happy to be there. I think Mike Sharp was one of those guys who was just happy to have a job wrestling and making a living, and not wanting to rock the boat, not wanting to cause any waves, not wanting to go in and say, I should be there, not him.
Right. That's a good point. And I don't think today there's that opportunity to just kind of fly under the radar and say, I'm content, I'm happy to be here. You have to produce at some level today.
Well, let me just say this. There's a guy like Zack Ryder who's done everything he can to get on the radar, and for whatever reason, he stays on. And he'll get an occasional appearance on Raw, occasional appearance on SmackDown, but he gets killed. Why? I don't know.
Sticking with yesteryear, and I actually confused Mike with this next guy. How about Tom Stone? Ever have any experience with Tom Stone?
No, I never did, but I did watch Tom on AWA. Very plain-looking guy, but I got the sense that Tom was one of those guys who was happy to be around the business, in the business, doing what he was doing, and was well liked by the guys and wanted to work with them. Otherwise, he would not have been there. You know, if you were a regular guy on TV who did get beat every week, you were there for a reason because there were other guys saying, hey, bring this guy because he's pretty good, nice to work with. Like that. So I think that's what Tom Stone's job was, and he knew it.
A guy that I just thought of that I added to the list. We do this off the cuff sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. I actually had the opportunity to spend some time with him on a trip with Dusty Wolf, or Dale Wolf, as he was known in WWF because Dusty just got there.
Right.
Dusty Wolf.
Texas man.
Yeah,
Texas boy.
absolutely.
He actually sold me a mask when I had to wear a mask.
Sold it to you.
Yes. And scrap the mask that way. Anyway, I had to have a mask for Texas, and I needed it. Called Dusty,
In a pinch.
he sold it to me. Yes, not a problem. But Dusty was one of those guys who again, likable. Somebody you wanted to do business with when you're in the ring. Somebody you knew when you got in the ring he wasn't going to try anything stupid, not going to try anything funny. Right. And
you trusted him in the ring.
Yes, trust is a huge thing in the ring. And Dusty was one of those guys that could be used either way. You know, he did the doink gimmick in Texas, and knew how to make money in the business, and that's what the guys' end goal was, to make some money. Right? You're not going out there every night killing yourself and taking pops for nothing.
You know what was interesting about Dusty to me when I met him was how busy he still was. He's like a George South. And we, being on the East Coast, we're a little bit more familiar with where George is and what he does. But Dusty was still doing overseas tours and still making a living in professional wrestling. And he was a journeyman for sure. Still today.
Right, and that was the key. I mean, try to find somebody or some place that you could go and hook up with. And some of the overseas tours that you couldn't believe it, like Aruba would do tours in a place like Aruba. My God! Or just recently, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, you had guys going to Korea. Korea is not easy to get into. So,
and funny you should bring that up because we actually have an entire episode dedicated to Florida Territorial.
Yeah.
So we will look forward to talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, and some of those guys, some of the strangest wouldn't be associated with those tours would be involved, like a George South or Dusty Wolf. And you think, how in the world? Well, how in the world is right, because if you go to some of these Air Force bases and talk about bringing entertainment to the crew or to the barracks, troops and things like that. So I mean, you know, that's what those guys do. Their job was to get people over, but there were times they got themselves over by getting these overseas tours and hooking up with these people and having that dynamic personality that you wouldn't think, but they do, because that's how they make the living.
It didn't necessarily transcend or transition onto the big screen to make them big stars in the major companies, but like we talked about in what was called Outlaws back then, or independent shows, they were the TV stars, and they drew that.
Right. So it wouldn't be any different when if you go overseas, you can make yourself a star, and that's the way it works.
How about SD Jones?
Oh man, what a
I love this. This might be my favorite.
Yeah, but he was a WWF mainstay forever, and wasn't he a tag team champion?
I believe so. Yeah.
With who?
I have no idea.
Right. SD.
You put me on the spot.
I sure did. We'll look that up too, because being a student of the game, I thought I knew too. But SD Jones, Special Delivery Jones. I mean, what a great name. What a great look.
Good look.
Yeah, man. And he stuck around forever, along with Johnny Rods. I mean,
Johnny Rods is a good
Johnny Rods. A guy who, once I found out about some of the history of in the background on New York territories, guys like Johnny Rods and SD Jones stuck around that place forever for a reason. Johnny Rods was like the enforcer. Johnny Rods was the guy who they put somebody new in the ring with and asked Johnny, how was he? How do you think he'd do? What do you think of it? And SD, I think, was along those same lines. You know, they had their standard go-to guys. And SD and Johnny Rods were two, who they would put somebody who was debuting in the garden or making a special appearance. And after the match, they would go back and say, ask Johnny or ask SD, what do you think? What's your opinion?
Trusting them that much.
Yes, exactly. And that's what those guys were there for.
You know, something that also sticks out to me is that when you go back and you look at the time that enhancement talent was really used, guys that I came up around, their first matches of their career were in these offices or these major companies. I know a guy whose first match was against Vader on national television for WCW. Young guys today just don't have the opportunity. Now, they'll go to a place like TNA or WWE, but they're used as security or as extras. But back then, Tom, you had your first match. Ready or not, here you are on national television as a jobber or enhancement talent for the top stars.
Well, yeah, and once again, we talk about the different era, the different day, the different time. I had my second match ever in Louisiana on TV against Jonathan Boyd, my third match against the Freebirds, and my fourth match against Junkyard Dog on TV, and I was green as grass, nervous as hell, but that's what my job was,
right?
To go in there and get beat.
And 4 matches into your career, you've got a bigger resume than somebody today who's been in the business 10 years. And I'm not comparing the two, but you know what I mean by
Right?
that.
No,
There's
exactly.
nowhere to go.
That was a different time, different place back then, and your job was to go out there and get killed. And I got killed, and I got killed pretty good.
Sometimes it was taken too far, though. Do you remember the incident with Vader in WCW where he broke the guy's back?
No.
It was the early 90s, and I actually knew somebody that was in the talent meeting the next week. Bill Watts was the booker at the time, and he said, I can't get you to put each other over, and you're hurting the guys that will. So talk about that. Some of the name guys that wouldn't do the job for each other, but then they're going out and maybe taking the liberties with the guys that are ruining it.
Well, here's my thought on it. If someone is going to be professional enough, and I'll give you a far say, as gracious enough, because not everybody who is doing the job for someone should have done the job for someone. Okay? But if someone's going to be professional enough to make you look better than you are or should be, then you take care of the guy. And this is a profession. This is professional, or it was professional wrestling. So you have to take care of your opponent. Number one, safety. Number two, protect yourself. But if a guy goes out there against a top star, against a guy like Vader, who's intimidating as it is, goes out there and has his back broken, I don't think that's professional. I don't think that's cool. I think that's uncalled for. So, look, I like Vader as a person. As a person,
if you're watching, he likes you.
But as a professional, or being in the ring, that's a different story. You can't go out and just hurt somebody, because that's not what this is about. It's not MMA. This is professional wrestling. It's always been about entertainment, but you need to take care of your opponent. And a job guy, again, if a guy's doing a job for you, take care of him. Make sure he wants to come back. Because if you have somebody that can do it better and help you get over, then he's doing you the favor.
I heard a story from George South one time, and he said that, I forget the guy's name, but Jake Roberts was working with an enhancement talent, and the guy was on the apron, standing on the apron on the outside of the ring. Jake clotheslined, and the guy took a great bump to the outside. And Jake had actually slipped him an extra $100 cash out of his own money for taking that bump and making him look good. Now, George blames the creation of ECW and people going through tables on that one guy because he got more money for doing it. But it goes back to taking care of the guys that are making you look good. That's an awesome story. I mean,
well, no, but it is an awesome story. And you have guys like Jake who would do that. And there are people like that who appreciate somebody doing that for you, because it's a business. It's not like... it's not like we all went out and actually won the matches on our own. And not like there's not a few guys who can do it on their own, believe me. But there's no call for that.
right.
It makes no sense. So if somebody's going to do business for you, and somebody's going to lay down for you, or be pinned by you, by all means, take care of the guy. And if he goes above and beyond the Call of Duty, to slip him $100 is nothing. It's nothing to you. It's a lot to him, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, there's stories of guys that, I know we're going to get into this, but Roddy Piper's another guy who appreciated somebody to put you over. Terry Funk is a guy who talks in his book about, he dedicates his book to all the guys, the job guys, the enhancement talent, who helped put guys like him and others over the years. Because without them, they wouldn't be stars. You need to have star makers to make stars. And all the guys who laid down and did the job for guys like Terry Funk, Bruiser Brody, whoever else it may be, Roddy Piper, are gracious and understand. Without them, they wouldn't be who they are.
Let me go through a couple more names here. How about Tommy Angel? Did you ever have
I do. Tommy Angel of Memphis, yeah. Nice guy. I think he was just happy to be there. He had a good body, looked the part. But again, I don't think he strived. He may have, but I never got the idea that he strived for stardom. He was just happy to be there, knew his role, and did well.
Let me press you a little bit on that. Happy to be there, didn't necessarily strive to get any further. So the business now is completely different. Is the business now full of guys who will do whatever it takes, or the landscape has just changed so much that? Because what I'm getting at is those guys we're talking about, Tommy Angel and all these guys that we listed that were good workers and good in their own right for whatever reasons. But are you saying that maybe they wouldn't survive in today's landscape?
I'm saying you have guys like Tommy Angel today and all those guys today. They're still out there.
They're still there.
But you have to have the guys who go to the office, who go to events, who go to whoever they need to go to and say, hey, I don't want to lose every night. I can win. I want to show you that I'm a star. And then they're going to say, okay, prove it. Well, give me the chance to prove it. No, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Give me a chance to prove it.
Right.
That's what you have to do. You have to kick the door, and they're not going to open the door and say, come in. I know for a fact, a couple of people right now in WWE who have been fighting and fighting and fighting and don't stop fighting on a daily basis. They get frustrated, but they don't give up. That's what you have to do.
And then they're also still there.
Yes, but for instance, one guy who's had one pay-per-view main event, maybe two, but he's bucking up against the top guy.
Right.
And that top guy isn't just going to say, oh, okay, come on in. No, he's going to say, no, and he will do whatever it takes to stop this guy's progress. But this guy, I won't mention names, won't stop pushing, and that's what it takes. If it takes going directly to Vince, if it takes going directly to Hunter, whoever it may be, that's what this guy is doing. And Hunter or Vince may tell him one thing that day, but he won't stop until those things he's being told comes true.
You can't take a night off either.
No, that's the whole thing. This is a 24/7 business. You have to be on, because if you're not, somebody is right behind you breathing down your back.
Let's face it, there's just not enough jobs for you not to be on 24/7.
Right. And that's where, Tommy Angel or something like that, just, you're intimidated, and you don't want to cause risk because you don't want to get fired because it's a good job and you get to do what you want. You get to do what you want. Win, lose, draw. But if you want to be that top guy, that man, you can't settle for win, lose, draw. You can't just settle for win. You can't settle for anything. You have to win. And that takes a lot of balls to do that. It takes a lot of talent to do that, because not everybody can.
And at the end of the day, I think also the guys, especially at today's age, they have to look in the mirror and say, did I do all those things?
Right.
Because it's a lot easier to place the blame game on Vince held me down, Hunter held me down, I didn't get the shot. But what did you do to create your own shot?
Look, when they talk about sharks and the sharks backstage and the sharks coming after you, man, you don't realize how true that is until you actually get in that feeding pool, and when somebody tears you down and is this nasty and politics. I mean, look at the real politics, the global politics. Our president, our senators, our people who run our lives. Well, that's just one element of what we're talking about in the world. We're talking about politics in a sports business, whether it's wrestling, baseball, football, wherever it may be. they don't like you, you ain't gonna be there. If they don't want you there, you won't be there. But what do you have to do to get them to like you, to want you to be there? That's the key.
You know, I had a radio DJ actually tell me one time that the toughest part about being in the public spotlight is your job is based on whether people like you or not.
Right.
So you can't afford to take it.
Well, and it's based on whether the management likes you or not.
True.
Because Roman Reigns, who I really do respect and I really do feel he has a lot of talent, but Roman Reigns is liked by management. And there are fans who like him, and I do believe he's getting headway. But just as though John Cena has earned his spot, John Cena's earned his way. Both started out paying dues, and they're paying dues every day. They can't take a night off. The fans may not like him, but that doesn't matter. Management does.
Right.
And management's going to make the fan. Management will do what they want to do until they're told otherwise. Just look at Batista, Triple H, and Daniel Bryan the year before in WrestleMania.
Daniel Bryan's another good example of that, of the crowd getting behind him, and then you get the impression that because the crowd is behind him, the office wants to stay to him.
Well, no,
But I don't always buy that. I'm just saying that's the impression.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. But, you know, it's been said, Daniel Bryan will never be anything more than a mid-card guy. What? Yeah. Great. In spite of Daniel Bryan never getting over, or the management never wanting him to get over, it happened because of CM. CM Punk will never be more than a mid-level guy. No. CM Punk, look, management did not see Punk as a top guy. Look at him. He doesn't look like a top. He doesn't work out. He does work out. But he doesn't look like a guy
larger than life.
He doesn't look larger than life. He's got tattoos. He's got the greasy hair. What? That's exactly why he's going to get over, because it doesn't look like everybody else.
Right.
Okay, well, there you go. It was the fans who helped Punk, Bryan, whoever else, get behind, and then management had no choice but to push these guys because that was the mandate.
Well, a couple more names I wanted to include in this list of enhancement talent. Buddy Lee Parker. Buddy Lee Parker. Now, the reason I want to include him is because he was pretty much an enhancement talent in WCW, but he also had a role behind the scenes. So, and you can kind of speak to that yourself as to where you're doing one thing on camera, but you play a much more important role behind the scenes.
Right.
You did.
Well, okay, once again, Buddy Lee Parker, I met him a couple times.
Don't think once he made me do squats.
Okay. Were you at the...
It wasn't at the power plant. It was an independent show. I still had to do it.
Why?
No, I'm
Okay, thank you. Well, but I know you never know, because it could have happened. Yeah, it could have happened. A stranger thing happened in this business. But there's the thing. When Buddy was training guys, now, I don't know this, so I'm hesitant to even say it, but I will. You know, some guys resent the fact they have to do jobs.
Right.
Some guys resent the fact that they have to put people over.
Right.
And therefore they take it out on other people when they're training people. Sure. So I don't know if that was Buddy's demeanor. I don't know if that's Buddy's mindset. But I do know that given the responsibility he was given, I would hope that he would have thought he could do it better than anyone else. Go out when he trains someone and then show them that he can go out and do a job or enhance someone better than anyone there. And the perfect example of that, again, for me, would be Steve Lombardi in WWE. So I don't know firsthand with Buddy Lee Parker what happened, but he did have a much larger responsibility behind the scenes as a trainer that I would have hoped he would have taken a lot more seriously and a lot more personally and to heart in showing the kids that he was training that this is business. And business isn't always about winning and losing, but it's how you win and how you lose that really means more.
I heard him make a comment that he also sometimes pulled the ring for WCW. You know, he said, I drove to Peoria, Illinois, put the ring up by myself. went 20 minutes with Benoit, took it down, and drove back to Atlanta. So that's something else people don't think about too. Not to put whatever partner over as
No, but that's true. No, that's true.
That's an aspect people. When I'm sitting at home watching Saturday morning wrestling and I see Buddy Lee Parker do a 6-minute job to Chris Benoit, whatever, I'm not thinking about the fact that after the show he's going to tear the ring down by himself and drive it back to Atlanta.
But that's, as a fan watching that, you're not supposed to think about that.
Right.
But for the business part of it, you do look at that and say, well, man, you're a valuable part of this company, because not only can you just get in the ring and wrestle, you're the guy we rely on and trust to carry our ring to the next event, and we know you're going to be there, you're reliable, and we know that we can count on you to get in the ring and give 6 or 15 minutes, whatever it takes.
Right.
You will be there for us. And that was the important part about the job guys. Whoever was booking them knew, for instance, go back to the Italian Stallion, knew that the Italian Stallion would bring in top quality people to do top quality work for the company and not bitch about anything and get the job done. Not have an ego about putting this guy over and not have an ego about doing whatever we need him to do.
Right.
And that's the deal.
How about Snake Brown?
Oh, I love Snake Brown from Atlanta. Snake was good. Snake was a good guy. He really was. And a lot of those guys would come in and they understood, man. It was like it wasn't their full-time gig. You know, they had a job on the side. Saturday morning, they'd come in and do TV, and then that was all their deal, man. But they would get along with the boys because they were cool, and they just want to hang around, man, be a part of the business. And this could be one of the greatest businesses in the world. It really can. So even if you just had that part of it to be there just that much, you know, you enjoyed it and you got to know the guys and have a good time.
How about in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the Hornet?
Ah, the Hornet. And what a mysterious guy he was.
He's still a mysterious
He's still a mysterious guy, man. The Hornet used to wear his mask in the dressing room. Yeah. And that was the greatest thing of all. He would sit in the middle, or sit in the corner, excuse me, and he would face the corner, doing like meditation.
Would he?
Yeah, man. It was the greatest thing because we thought he was on drugs or something. And we never found out if he was because he never shared.
Never shared.
No, he never shared.
Never take the hood off from him.
No, he kept his hood on. He'd come to the dressing room, sit down in the corner, face the corner, and all of us were kind of afraid of him. We heard he was some kind of shooter from Taiwan. But we didn't know because he never talked to us. Yeah, he was a freaky guy, man. He was kind of weird. He was out there.
Are there any others that we can add to the Enhancement Hall of Fame?
You know, man, once again, I think anybody who has done a job, and we've all done jobs. Ric Flair was the biggest job guy. He put people over.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Exactly. And he knew it. That was his job, is to make these guys look better than they were. And you know, that's why I always took it as, this is what we do. And it's not competition, it's cooperation. So, and especially later on in years, man, when I started training guys, I looked at it as, good Lord, and this, you know, I've heard it said before, we're getting all upset and all bent out of shape about, at the end of the day, it's just wrestling. And it is, it's just wrestling. You know, you have to think it like that. And without the guys to put us over, we wouldn't be over. So, you know, without that, it wouldn't be this and everything else. So, but one of my favorite job guys has to be the Hornet. Just for the mystery that he kept on. He kept his mask on. Yeah. He showered with his mask.
Showered with his mask.
He wouldn't talk to anyone. Yeah, but people mistook that as like being arrogant.
Other than the Hornet, favorite job guy to work with?
I don't know. Lombardi, but Lombardi never did a job when they had a job.
That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we should end on that.
Why not?
We're about out of time anyways. It's been one of my favorite episodes so far of The Office.
Hey, did we get an hour out of this by any chance?
We
talked about an hour out of enhancement.
We got an hour out of enhancement talent. They said it couldn't be done. We enhanced the enhancement talent.
Yes, we did.
There you go. So I want to talk about a few things real quick before we go. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our own website, theofficevisit.com. Also visit logansworldtv.com for all the latest information on the other projects and products that we have. You can also digitally download the Office Visit, as well as our other shows on your tablet, smartphone, and laptop. We have access to our merchandise. We have a great store on there, Tom, and features this right here, the brand new Office Visit t-shirt with Dr. Tom on it.
Yes.
This may hurt a bit. We also have Dr. Tom's book.
How do these belts look, by the way?
The belts look awesome. I don't know who took the time to set those up, but they look great.
They look great.
Pro wrestling curriculum, advice, suggestions, and stories to help the aspiring pro get to the next level. So you can get the book. You can also purchase DVDs and just about everything you can think of. OfficeVisit.com, LogansWorldTV.com. Tom, thanks again. I had a blast. We've got much more to come in Season 2. Stay tuned. And again, for Dr. Tom, my name is Matt McCormick, and this has been another exciting episode of The Office Visit. We'll see you on the next one.